The night a billionaire threw his pregnant wife into the rain was the same night his empire quietly began to collapse. The mansion doors slammed shut with a sound that echoed across the empty Beverly Hills street like a gunshot in the dark. Olivia Bennett stumbled forward, one trembling hand gripping the railing beside the marble steps, while the other instinctively shielded the curve of her 7-month pregnant belly beneath her soaked cream dress. Rain hammered against the driveway in silver sheets, cold water dripping from her blonde hair onto the suitcase lying half open near the curb. Inside the mansion, warm golden light spilled through the towering glass windows. Outside, Olivia stood alone beneath the storm. Nathaniel, her voice cracked from disbelief more than pain. She looked up at the man standing in the doorway. Nathaniel Crawford remained perfectly still beneath the crystal chandelier behind him, one hand in the pocket of his tailored charcoal suit, the other resting against the massive front door as if this were nothing more than another business decision. At 38, he looked exactly like the magazines described him. Sharp jaw, controlled expression, billionaire composure polished over years of boardrooms and camera flashes. And tonight, there was absolutely no warmth left in his eyes. Behind him stood Vanessa Hale wrapped in a silk robe the color of champagne, her manicured fingers lightly touching Nathaniel's arm. She did not smile. She didn't need to. The victory in her eyes was enough. Thunder rolled above the hills as Olivia stared at the man she had spent 9 years loving. 9 years building his company beside him while he worked out of borrowed office spaces and slept on couches too small for his ambitions. 9 years believing loyalty meant something. Another gust of rain swept through the driveway, sending icy water against her bare legs. The baby shifted hard inside her stomach, almost like fear had its own heartbeat. Olivia inhaled shakily. "Please," she whispered. "It's almost midnight." Nathaniel's expression never changed. "You should have thought about that before embarrassing me tonight." The words landed colder than the storm itself. Olivia felt her chest tighten. Hours earlier, she had stood beside him at a luxury charity gala while photographers captured what the tabloids called America's perfect power couple. Then she saw Vanessa wearing the diamond bracelet Olivia had bought Nathaniel on their anniversary. The same bracelet he claimed he'd lost months ago. One small detail, one impossible truth. And suddenly, every late-night meeting, every canceled vacation, every unanswered call snapped together like broken glass. Olivia swallowed hard as rainwater dripped from her eyelashes. "I asked you one question." Nathaniel stepped slightly forward, his Italian shoes stopping just inside the doorway where the rain couldn't touch him. "And you caused a scene in front of investors." "I'm carrying your child." For the first time, emotion flickered across his face. Not guilt, irritation. Vanessa crossed her arms slowly, watching Olivia the way wealthy people observe damage they don't want associated with their lives. Nathaniel exhaled once through his nose. "The car account has been deactivated. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow." Olivia stared at him in silence. Somewhere deep inside the mansion, music still played softly through hidden speakers. Piano notes drifting through warmth and luxury while she stood shaking in the storm outside the life she helped build. Then Nathaniel said the sentence Olivia would replay in her mind for the rest of her life. "You should be grateful I waited this long." Olivia stood frozen in the rain long after the mansion doors locked behind her. The storm blurred the lights from the Crawford estate into streaks of gold and white across the wet pavement, but she could still see their shadows moving inside. Nathaniel poured himself another drink, while Vanessa leaned against the marble kitchen island like she already owned the place. The place Olivia had once called home. A shiver ran through her body as cold water soaked through the thin fabric clinging to her skin. Her baby shifted again, slower this time, and panic tightened in her chest. "It is okay," she whispered softly, pressing both hands against her stomach. "Mom is here." But even she no longer believed the words. 3 years earlier, there had been no mansion. No private drivers. No magazine covers calling Nathaniel Crawford the youngest real estate billionaire in California. Back then, there had only been a tiny apartment over a dry cleaner in downtown Los Angeles and 2 exhausted people chasing impossible dreams. Olivia remembered balancing spreadsheets at 2 in the morning while Nathaniel slept face down across stacks of unpaid invoices. She remembered eating instant noodles for weeks because every dollar they had went into his first property deal. She remembered selling the condo her late mother left her because the bank refused to approve Nathaniel's emergency business loan. Just 6 more months, he had promised her back then. Once the company survives this year, I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Olivia closed her eyes as rainwater rolled down her cheeks. Funny how rich men always forgot the women who carried them before the world started clapping for them. Her phone vibrated weakly in her purse. The battery icon flashed red. 1%. With trembling fingers, she opened the banking application. Error message. She tried again. Access denied. Olivia stared at the screen as thunder cracked above the hills. Nathaniel had removed her from the account. Not tonight. Earlier. Maybe days ago. Maybe weeks. Suddenly, every strange moment from the past month returned all at once. The financial advisor who stopped returning her calls. The assistant who avoided eye contact. The legal envelope Nathaniel quickly shoved into his briefcase yesterday morning when she walked into his office. He had planned this carefully. Every detail. Every humiliation. Another cold gust swept through the driveway. Olivia bent slightly as a sharp pressure tightened across her abdomen. Fear flashed through her instantly. 7 months pregnant. Alone. In the middle of a storm. She forced herself to breathe slowly the way her doctor taught her during prenatal classes Nathaniel never attended because he was too busy building their future. A bitter laugh almost escaped her throat at the thought. Their future. The words sounded ridiculous now. The mansion. Lights suddenly dimmed as motion sensors shifted across the front yard. Olivia looked up one final time. For a second she thought Nathaniel might come outside. That somewhere beneath the arrogance and cruelty, the man she loved still existed. But instead, the curtains closed. Just like that. Her entire marriage disappeared behind dark glass and expensive walls. Olivia lowered herself carefully onto the soaked suitcase near the curb, exhaustion settling into her bones. Across the empty street, lightning illuminated the row of towering palm trees bending violently in the wind. Beverly Hills looked beautiful in the rain. Cold. Untouchable. Like the people living inside it. Then, somewhere down the hill, headlights appeared through the storm. A black SUV slowly turned onto the street and began driving toward the mansion. The black SUV rolled slowly through the rain before stopping beside the curb with headlights glowing across the flooded street like twin beams cutting through the storm. Olivia squinted against the water running down her face as the engine went quiet. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the driver's side door opened. A tall man stepped out holding a dark umbrella against the heavy California rain. His coat was charcoal wool, tailored perfectly, expensive without trying too hard. He closed the car door calmly and looked directly at Olivia sitting beside her soaked suitcase beneath the dim street lamp. "You are going to get sick sitting out here," he said. His voice was low and steady, the kind that belonged to someone used to being listened to. Olivia instinctively tightened her grip around her stomach. "I am fine." The man glanced once toward the massive Crawford estate looming above the hill. Warm lights still glowed behind the windows while rain streamed down the stone walls like tears sliding across a perfect face. His expression changed almost imperceptibly. Recognition. That house belongs to Nathaniel Crawford. It was not a question. Olivia hesitated before nodding slowly. The stranger looked back at her again, taking in the soaked dress, the trembling fingers, the exhaustion she could no longer hide. His jaw tightened for half a second before disappearing beneath composure. "Do you need medical help?" Olivia almost laughed at the question. Not because it was funny, because it had been hours since anyone asked if she needed anything at all. Another sharp pressure crossed her abdomen, and she inhaled carefully through it. The stranger noticed immediately. "How far along are you?" 7 months. Rain hammered harder against the umbrella as silence stretched between them. Somewhere uphill, thunder rolled across the city while palm trees bent violently in the wind. Los Angeles looked cinematic during storms. Beautiful from penthouses and impossible from sidewalks. The man finally spoke again. "You should not be out here alone tonight." Olivia lowered her eyes toward the wedding ring still clinging to her finger. Platinum. Oval diamond. Nathaniel once told reporters he designed it himself because Olivia deserved something timeless. Funny how quickly forever expired when billionaires found someone newer. "I do not really have anywhere to go," she admitted quietly. The stranger studied her face for a moment longer before extending his hand slightly. "Ethan Mercer." Olivia's eyes widened faintly. Even through the fog of exhaustion, she recognized the name immediately. Ethan Mercer, founder of Mercer Capital, tech investor, financial ghost story of Wall Street. News articles called him ruthless because nobody ever saw him lose twice. Nathaniel used to mention him sometimes during late-night phone calls years ago, always carefully, always with tension hiding beneath his voice. Olivia swallowed hard. Olivia Bennett. Ethan's expression shifted almost invisibly at her last name. He looked back, toward the mansion again, longer this time. Rainwater slid down the black umbrella in steady streams between them. Bennett, he repeated quietly. Then something colder entered his eyes. Not anger exactly. Recognition. Like a puzzle piece clicking into place after years hidden in the wrong box. Olivia noticed it instantly. You know my husband? Ethan gave a faint, humorless smile. Unfortunately, the single word carried history behind it. Before Olivia could ask anything else, another wave of pressure tightened, painfully across her stomach. She flinched despite trying to hide it. Ethan immediately crouched slightly beside her, calm but alert now. Olivia, look at me. She did. Are you having contractions? Fear flashed across her face before she answered. I do not know. Ethan glanced once at the mansion above them, then back at her soaked suitcase sitting in dirty rainwater beside the curb. Whatever decision he made happened instantly. He opened the passenger side door of the SUV. Warm air spilled into the cold storm, carrying the faint scent of leather and cedarwood. Get in the car, he said quietly. Because something tells me Nathaniel Crawford just made the worst mistake of his life. The SUV moved silently through the rain-soaked streets of Los Angeles, while Olivia sat curled against the leather seat, trying to stop her hands from shaking. Warm air drifted softly from the vents, fogging the edges of the windows as city lights blurred past outside in streaks of silver and gold. For the first time that night, she was no longer standing in the storm, but the ache inside her chest had followed her into the car. Ethan Mercer drove with one hand resting calmly against the steering wheel, his expression unreadable beneath the passing glow of traffic lights. He had not asked questions. He had not offered pity. Somehow that made him feel safer than anyone else had all evening. Olivia stared down at her wedding ring again. Water droplets still clung to the diamond. Her fingers slowly twisted at once around her skin before stopping. You can take it off when you are ready, Ethan said quietly without looking at her. Olivia looked up in surprise. I did not say anything. You did not have to. His voice remained calm, controlled, the kind of voice built from surviving difficult things without talking about them afterward. The SUV turned onto a private road lined with towering eucalyptus trees swaying in the storm. Ahead, soft white lights emerged through the rain, revealing a modern glass penthouse perched above the hills overlooking downtown Los Angeles. Olivia blinked slowly. Even exhausted, she recognized the architecture from magazines. Ethan parked beneath a covered entrance before stepping out into the rain. Seconds later, her door opened beneath the shelter of his umbrella. Careful, he said as she climbed out slowly with one hand supporting her stomach. Inside, the penthouse felt impossibly quiet. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering city below, while a fireplace cast warm amber light across dark wood floors and cream-colored furniture. The air smelled faintly of cedar and coffee. Expensive without feeling cold. Olivia hesitated near the entrance, suddenly aware of her soaked dress and dripping hair against the spotless interior. I should not ruin your floors. Ethan looked at her for a long second before answering. Olivia, you are not ruining anything. Something in the way he said it nearly broke her composure completely. A woman in navy medical scrubs appeared from the hallway carrying a small case. Mid-40s. Calm eyes. Efficient movements. Dr. Elaine Foster, Ethan said. She handles emergencies for my staff. Olivia immediately looked embarrassed. I do not need a hospital. I just need a minute. Dr. Foster offered a reassuring smile. 7-month pregnancies and stress storms are not something we ignore. 30 minutes later, Olivia sat wrapped in a soft gray blanket on the sectional sofa while the doctor finished checking the baby's heartbeat through a portable monitor. The rhythmic sound filled the quiet penthouse like distant drums. Strong, steady, alive. Olivia finally exhaled fully for the first time all night. Your baby looks healthy, Dr. Foster said gently. But stress can trigger complications. You need rest. Olivia nodded weakly while Ethan stood near the windows overlooking the storm outside. He had been silent through most of the examination, but the moment Dr. Foster mentioned Nathaniel Crawford's name from the emergency contact paperwork, something dark passed across his face again. Olivia noticed. "You really know my husband." Ethan slipped one hand into his pocket slowly. "I know exactly who he is." Lightning flashed across the skyline behind him, illuminating the sharp angles of his face for half a second before darkness returned. Olivia frowned softly. "What happened between you two?" Ethan gave a quiet, humorless laugh that carried no amusement at all. 7 years ago, Nathaniel and I built a company together." Olivia's eyes widened slightly. Nathaniel had never mentioned that. Not once. Ethan continued staring out at the storm. "Then one morning I discovered he had transferred investors, contracts, and half the board behind my back." Olivia felt her stomach tighten again, but this time it was not physical pain. It was recognition. "He told everyone I was unstable," Ethan said quietly. "By the end of the week, I lost everything except the lesson." Silence settled heavily between them while rain slid down the massive windows overlooking the city below. Then Ethan finally turned toward her fully. His expression was calm again now, almost too calm. "Nathaniel Crawford destroys people the moment he believes they are too weak to fight back." Olivia barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the mansion doors shutting in front of her again. The sound followed her through the night, like an echo trapped inside her chest. Around 3 in the morning, she gave up trying and quietly walked toward the massive windows overlooking Los Angeles. The storm had finally passed. Below the hills, the city glittered beneath silver dawn light, while traffic moved slowly through streets still wet from the rain. Somewhere out there, Nathaniel Crawford was probably sleeping peacefully in 8,000 thread count sheets beside the woman he chose over his wife, an unborn child. The thought should have made Olivia cry again. Instead, she felt strangely numb. She wrapped the gray blanket tighter around herself and stared down at the sleeping city until soft footsteps interrupted the silence behind her. Ethan stood near the kitchen holding 2 mugs of coffee. "Dr. Foster said you should avoid caffeine," he said calmly, setting one cup aside before handing her another. "Tea." Olivia accepted it carefully. "Thank you." Steam curled upward between them while morning light slowly filled the penthouse. For a few seconds neither of them spoke. Then Ethan finally asked the question quietly. "Did Nathaniel ever let you see the company financials?" Olivia frowned slightly. "Not recently." Ethan nodded once like he expected the answer. "And your name? It used to be attached to everything." Olivia looked down at the tea trembling slightly in her hands. "When we first started the company, I handled contracts, payroll, investor scheduling. But after we became successful," her voice faded. Ethan finished the sentence for her. "He slowly removed you." Olivia looked up sharply because that was exactly what happened. Not all at once. Gradually. Quietly. First the accountants stopped copying her on emails. Then legal meetings happened without her. Then Nathaniel hired executives who looked through her instead of at her. By the time she realized she had disappeared from her own life, everyone else already acted like she had never belonged there to begin with. Ethan walked toward the marble kitchen island where a black folder rested beside his laptop. "There is something you need to see." Olivia hesitated before following him slowly. Ethan opened the folder without dramatic gestures. Inside were printed financial statements, property transfers, and legal documents organized with brutal precision. Olivia immediately recognized Nathaniel's signature across several pages. Her stomach tightened. "What is this?" Ethan looked directly at her. "The reason your husband stopped pretending." Olivia's eyes moved quickly across the paperwork. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Real estate holdings under shell corporations. Transfer requests dated nearly 4 months earlier. Her breath caught when she saw another page. Divorce preparation documents. Draft custody agreements. Temporary spousal support calculations. Nathaniel had planned every detail before throwing her out into the rain. Olivia suddenly felt dizzy. She gripped the edge of the counter for balance while the baby shifted inside her. Ethan noticed immediately. "Sit down." She obeyed silently this time, too exhausted to argue. Ethan remained standing across from her, one hand resting against the chair opposite hers. "Nathaniel began restructuring assets 6 months ago," he explained quietly. "If these filings had finished processing before the divorce, most of his wealth would have become untouchable." Olivia stared at the documents in disbelief. How did you get these? Ethan's expression hardened slightly. People like Nathaniel always assume loyalty can be purchased forever. Olivia looked down again at the custody papers. Primary residence requested by father. Financial instability, concerns regarding mother. Her throat tightened painfully. Nathaniel was going to use money to take her child away too. Suddenly, every cruel word from the past year sounded different now. More calculated. More deliberate. Like he had been building a legal case while pretending to build a family. Silence filled the penthouse while sunlight slowly pushed away the last shadows of the storm outside. Then Olivia did something unexpected. Calmly, almost gently, she slid her wedding ring off her finger. The diamond caught the morning light one final time before she placed it directly on top of Nathaniel's divorce papers. Ethan watched her carefully without speaking. Olivia stared at the ring for several long seconds before finally whispering the words Nathaniel never imagined he would hear from her. He thinks I am weak. Then she slowly lifted her eyes toward Ethan Mercer. That is going to be his biggest mistake. 3 days later, the rain was gone from Los Angeles, but Olivia still felt cold every time she remembered standing outside the mansion with nowhere to go. Except now something inside her had changed. The tears had stopped. The shaking had stopped. Even the fear felt different now. Sharper. Focused. She sat near the massive penthouse windows wearing a cream cashmere sweater borrowed from Ethan's assistant while morning sunlight spilled across the city below. On the marble table in front of her sat stacks of documents, highlighted pages, legal notes, and printed financial transfers connected to Nathaniel Crawford. Olivia studied them carefully while one hand rested against the slow movement of her unborn baby beneath the fabric. Every page revealed another lie, another hidden move, another betrayal prepared months before he ever threw her into the storm. He moved the Aspen property under a holding company in Delaware. Ethan explained from across the room. Then he transferred partial ownership to Vanessa Hale 2 weeks ago. Olivia looked up sharply. Vanessa owns part of the property? Ethan nodded once. Nathaniel likes rewarding loyalty. The bitterness in his voice carried years behind it. Olivia lowered her eyes toward the paperwork again. There it was in black ink. Vanessa Hale listed beside millions of dollars in transferred assets, while Olivia's name appeared nowhere. Not on the homes. Not on the accounts. Not even on the emergency trust Nathaniel created 6 months earlier. It was like he had slowly erased her from existence while smiling beside her in public. Olivia leaned back slowly against the chair as sunlight reflected across the glass windows around them. I used to believe successful men became cold because of pressure, she said quietly. Now I think some people were cold long before they became rich. Ethan watched her silently for a moment before walking toward the kitchen. Nathaniel was always obsessed with winning, he said calmly while pouring coffee into a dark ceramic mug. The problem is that eventually people like him stop seeing human beings. They only see leverage. Olivia swallowed hard because she understood exactly what he meant now. The marriage, the gala appearances, the pregnancy, even the mansion. Nathaniel treated everything like an investment designed to improve his image. And the moment something threatened that image, he removed it, including her. A vibration from the marble table interrupted the silence. Olivia glanced down at the unfamiliar number flashing across the screen. For 1 second, she considered ignoring it. Then she answered quietly. Hello. The voice on the other end was smooth and female. Vanessa. Olivia, she said sweetly. I was beginning to worry. Olivia's entire body stiffened. Ethan immediately noticed from across the room. Vanessa continued before Olivia could respond. Nathaniel wanted me to check whether you finally found somewhere appropriate to stay. The cruelty beneath the fake concern was almost elegant. Olivia closed her eyes briefly. 3 days ago, those words would have shattered her. Not anymore. I am doing fine, Olivia answered calmly. Vanessa laughed softly. That is good because Nathaniel is moving forward quickly. The lawyers are finalizing everything next week. Olivia's fingers tightened slightly around the phone. Everything. Custody arrangements included. Silence filled the penthouse instantly. Ethan slowly lowered his coffee mug onto the counter without taking his eyes off Olivia's face. Vanessa's voice became softer now, more poisonous. You should know Nathaniel plans to argue emotional instability. Running away in the middle of the night while pregnant was not exactly responsible. Olivia felt something inside her go completely still. Not sadness. Not panic. Clarity. She suddenly understood the real reason Nathaniel abandoned her publicly instead of quietly arranging a divorce. He needed her broken, isolated, emotional, easier to control in court. Vanessa kept talking, but Olivia barely heard the words anymore. Her eyes moved toward the skyline beyond the windows where sunlight now flooded the city that once felt so untouchable. Then, very calmly, Olivia ended the call. Ethan walked closer carefully. What did she say? Olivia placed the phone down beside Nathaniel's financial documents and slowly looked up at him. The softness that once defined her expression was fading now, replaced by something steadier, stronger. She made a mistake, Olivia whispered. Ethan frowned slightly. What kind of mistake? Olivia rested one protective hand over her stomach before answering. She reminded me I still have something worth fighting for. 2 weeks later, Olivia Bennett no longer looked like the woman abandoned in the rain outside a billionaire's mansion. The sadness in her eyes had hardened into focus. Every morning sunlight poured through the penthouse windows while legal teams, accountants, and investigators quietly moved through Ethan Mercer's private conference room, gathering evidence piece by piece against Nathaniel Crawford. Olivia sat at the center of it all now. Not hiding, not crying, learning. The city stretched endlessly beyond the glass skyline, while pages of contracts covered the marble table in front of her. Offshore, transfers, hidden partnerships, internal emails. Nathaniel had spent years believing nobody would ever look closely enough to challenge him. He forgot one thing. Olivia had built the foundation of Crawford Holdings beside him. She knew where every buried secret started. These shell companies connect directly to the Aspen transfer, one attorney explained while sliding another file toward her. If we prove marital assets were concealed before separation, the judge can freeze everything. Olivia nodded slowly while making notes with steady hands. Across the room, Ethan watched silently from beside the windows, his expression unreadable as always. But every time Nathaniel's name appeared in another document, something colder settled behind his eyes. Revenge looked different on Ethan Mercer. Quiet, patient, expensive. That afternoon, Olivia walked into the guest dressing room, where garment bags lined the wall beside mirrors glowing with soft white light. Ethan's assistant had arranged several outfits for upcoming legal meetings, but Olivia's attention stopped on a single ivory-colored maternity dress hanging near the center. Elegant, understated, strong. Not the fragile woman Nathaniel expected to destroy. She touched the fabric carefully. Then she looked at herself in the mirror. For months, she barely recognized the exhausted woman staring back at her. The wife constantly apologizing. The woman shrinking herself smaller so her husband could feel bigger. But now something else stared back. Someone calmer. Someone awake. Her phone suddenly vibrated against the vanity table. Unknown number. Olivia answered carefully. Hello. Mrs. Crawford? A nervous male voice asked. This is Daniel from Crawford Holdings Accounting. Olivia frowned slightly. What is this regarding? The young man lowered his voice immediately. I should not be calling you, but people in the office are talking. Nathaniel is panicking. Olivia's heartbeat slowed instead of rising. Why? Silence crackled briefly through the line before Daniel answered. Mercer Capital just acquired 12% of Crawford Holdings stock this morning. Olivia slowly lifted her eyes toward Ethan standing across the penthouse. He was still reading financial reports, calm as ever, like buying pieces of billion-dollar companies before lunch was completely normal. Daniel continued nervously. Board members are freaking out. Nathaniel thought Mercer would never touch this company again after what happened years ago. Olivia glanced again toward Ethan. Thank you for telling me, she said quietly before ending the call. Seconds later, Ethan looked up from his paperwork, immediately reading her expression. Something happened. Olivia walked slowly toward him, holding the phone at her side. You bought part of Crawford Holdings. Ethan closed the file in his hands carefully. I bought enough to make your husband uncomfortable. Olivia stared at him for a long moment. You planned this. Nathaniel planned your destruction first. His voice remained calm but firm. I am simply giving him the opportunity to experience uncertainty for once. Before Olivia could answer, another vibration interrupted the silence. This time it was a message notification. Nathaniel. The first contact since the night he threw her out. Olivia opened it slowly. We need to talk immediately. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Another message appeared seconds later. You have no idea what you are getting involved in. Ethan noticed the change in her face. What did he say? Olivia looked down at the screen one final time before calmly locking the phone. Then she set it face down on the marble table beside the evidence Nathaniel spent months trying to hide. Outside the windows, the late afternoon sun dipped lower across Los Angeles, turning the skyline gold. Olivia finally looked back at Ethan Mercer. I think my husband is finally starting to feel afraid. The ballroom glittered like a palace built for people who had never heard the word consequences. Crystal chandeliers reflected across polished marble floors while waiters moved through the crowd carrying champagne beneath golden light. Los Angeles elite filled the annual Crawford Foundation charity gala dressed in diamonds, tuxedos, and carefully rehearsed smiles. At the center of it all stood Nathaniel Crawford beside Vanessa Hale, looking exactly like the power couple. Every magazine still worshipped. But tonight something was wrong. Nathaniel kept checking his phone every few minutes. Investors whispered in corners. Board members avoided eye contact. The perfect image was beginning to crack. Vanessa leaned closer to him near the center staircase. You need to calm down, she murmured softly. People are staring. Nathaniel forced a smile toward a passing photographer, but tension sharpened his jaw. Mercer is moving too fast, he muttered under his breath. Nobody knew he was buying stock. Vanessa touched his arm reassuringly. You always win. Nathaniel did not answer. Across the ballroom, strings played softly beneath the low hum of conversations and camera flashes. Then suddenly the music faltered. Not completely, just enough for people to notice. One by one, heads began turning toward the entrance. A silence spread slowly through the ballroom like a ripple across water. Nathaniel looked up and froze. Olivia Bennett stood beneath the grand archway wearing the ivory maternity gown Ethan's assistant selected weeks earlier. Elegant, calm, untouchable. Soft waves of blonde hair rested against her shoulders while the ballroom lights reflected gently against the curve of her 7-month pregnant stomach. She did not look broken anymore. She looked impossible to ignore. Conversation stopped entirely now. Even the photographers lowered their cameras for half a second in shock before flashes exploded across the ballroom. Nathaniel stared at her like he had seen a ghost return from the storm he created himself. Vanessa's expression hardened instantly. What is she doing here? She whispered sharply. But Olivia never looked at either of them. Instead, she walked forward slowly beside Ethan Mercer, whose arrival triggered an entirely different wave of whispers across the room. Investors stiffened visibly. Board members exchanged alarmed glances. Nathaniel's face drained of color. Ethan Mercer rarely appeared in public, and never without a reason. Good evening, Ethan said calmly as they approached the center of the ballroom. Nathaniel forced himself to step forward. Olivia. Her name sounded unfamiliar in his mouth now. Olivia finally met his eyes. For a brief moment, he saw the woman he abandoned in the rain. Then the moment disappeared. Nathaniel, she answered quietly. Vanessa crossed her arms immediately. This is inappropriate. Ethan almost smiled. Actually, financial fraud investigations are usually very appropriate. Silence crashed across the ballroom. Nathaniel's expression darkened instantly. Excuse me. Ethan reached calmly into his jacket and handed several documents to a stunned board member standing nearby. Offshore transfers. Hidden marital assets. Undisclosed shell corporations connected to Crawford Holdings. Murmurs exploded around the room. Camera flashes intensified violently now. Nathaniel stepped closer, lowering his voice sharply. You think this is a game? No. Ethan answered calmly. Games end. This is accountability. Another voice suddenly interrupted from behind them. Nathaniel Crawford? 2 federal investigators stepped into the ballroom carrying official folders beneath the crystal lights. The entire room went silent again. One investigator spoke clearly enough for nearby guests to hear. We need to discuss several financial discrepancies connected to your company. Vanessa's composure finally cracked. This is insane. Olivia watched them both carefully while the ballroom around them descended into whispers, panic, and cameras flashing like lightning. Nathaniel turned toward her desperately now. Olivia, listen to me. Mercer manipulated you. Olivia tilted her head slightly, almost sad for him now. No, she said softly. You just never believed I could survive without you. The final blow arrived seconds later when one of Nathaniel's own board members stepped forward pale and shaken. Nathaniel, he whispered tightly. Mercer Capital now controls 34% of the company. Real fear entered Nathaniel Crawford's eyes for the first time in years. Around them, the perfect charity gala continued collapsing beneath crystal chandeliers and camera flashes, while Olivia Bennett stood perfectly still in the center of it all, no longer the woman left outside in the rain, but the woman who finally walked back and stronger than the storm itself. 6 months later, sunlight poured across the balcony of a quiet coastal home overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Waves rolled gently against the cliffs below, while white curtains drifted through the open glass doors in the warm California breeze. The storms were gone now. Olivia Bennett sat in a cream linen chair with a sleeping newborn resting peacefully against her chest, wrapped in a pale gray blanket. Tiny fingers curled softly around the edge of her sweater, while morning light illuminated the child's golden hair. Olivia looked down at her daughter and smiled in the quiet way people do after surviving something they once believed would destroy them completely. The world looked different now. Smaller somehow. Simpler. More honest. Behind her, soft footsteps crossed the hardwood floor before Ethan Mercer stepped onto the balcony, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He paused briefly at the sight of Olivia holding the baby beneath the morning sunlight. For a second, even he looked unguarded. Human. She finally fell asleep? He asked quietly. Olivia nodded carefully. After keeping me awake all night. Ethan handed her a warm mug before sitting beside her, overlooking the ocean. Silence settled comfortably between them, while seabirds drifted above the cliffs below. Not the heavy silence from months earlier. This one felt earned. Peaceful. On the glass table beside them rested a folded business newspaper with Nathaniel Crawford's face printed across the front page beneath bold headlines. Federal investigation expands into Crawford Holdings collapse. Olivia glanced at it briefly before looking away again. The article no longer had power over her. In the months following the gala, everything Nathaniel built began unraveling publicly. Investors withdrew support. The board removed him as chief executive officer. Federal investigators froze multiple accounts tied to the offshore transfers Ethan uncovered. Vanessa Hale disappeared from social media entirely after reporters revealed her involvement in several hidden property deals connected to Crawford Holdings. The mansion in Beverly Hills eventually sold at auction 3 months later. Olivia heard strangers bought it. Funny how quickly. Homes become buildings once loved disappears from inside them. Ethan took a slow sip of coffee while studying the horizon. Nathaniel requested another meeting through his attorneys yesterday. Olivia did not react immediately. She simply adjusted the blanket around her daughter more carefully. And Ethan glanced toward her calmly. I ignored it. A faint smile touched Olivia's lips. Months ago, she would have asked what Nathaniel said. Whether he sounded angry, regretful, broken. Now she realized none of it mattered anymore. Some endings lose their power the moment you stop needing answers from the people who hurt you. The baby stirred softly against her chest before settling again. Olivia kissed the top of her daughter's head gently and looked out toward the ocean glowing beneath the morning sun. Do you know the strange part? She said quietly. Ethan waited. The night he threw me out into the rain. I thought my life was ending. Her voice remained soft but steady now. I did not realize it was